Perfect. All right. Welcome to week 3 of the Metabolism Makeover. Today, we're going to talk about where you get the biggest burn. Everybody wants to know, like, what do I got to do to burn calories, right? So I'm going to give you the real breakdown of where your calories are actually burned and how to make it work for you. Before we do that, I am going to do a quick review, and then I'm going to open it up to questions based on last week. Or any questions that have come up so far. So review from last week, we talked about the 4 hormones. This is a little deceptive, so let me clear this up. The 4 fat loss hormones. They are the 4 hormones that have the greatest impact on your overall metabolic system when it comes to fat loss. I just want to make that a little clearer. And those hormones are leptin, ghrelin, insulin, and cortisol. So those are the ones that we want to balance. Now, one of the questions that did come up that I got emailed, I'm going to read it so that I can answer it because it is in relation specifically to this. Where did it go? After making these changes you suggested this far, as well as ones you'll be teaching in the future, in theory, by balancing these 4 hormones we've learned about, insulin, cortisol, ghrelin, and leptin, and we will feel better, get stronger, and ideally get to a healthy weight, question mark. I guess it just seems so crazy to think that this is all it takes for them to get balanced. I'd always assumed it's a more complex chemical makeup for our body's hormones. So it goes on, but I wanted to clear this up because the reality is that it is complex. But these are the 4 that have the biggest impact. And so you want to remember that hormones don't work in a vacuum. They work together and they work I always use it like the example of like you behave a certain way based on who you're around, right? So like you probably behave a little bit differently around your kids than maybe you behave around your boss, right? Like there's a slight difference in your personality and what you show. Well, hormones are that way too. So what they do and the message that they send is dependent upon what other hormones are in the room, if you can kind of make if that makes sense. And so it is very complex. 100%, you are correct. It is very complex. This is not as easy as I'm making it. However, these are the 4 that have the biggest impact. And when you get them, we'll say balanced, there's no one perfect spot, but when they're optimized and they're working the way that we want them to, they have a chain reaction to other hormones. And they're easy to get feedback from. Now, I can tell you that especially in perimenopause, moving into menopause, you can have these 4 fairly balanced, if you will. And then because estrogen, she's a real nightmare during perimenopause. She has big swings and big dips. She affects these 4 as well. And so that is where it gets a little bit more complex. But this is where we always start. And then we go, okay, what else is happening? And I hope that that answers that question. If I didn't quite answer it fully, then let me know and I'll dive in as much as I can. The other question was, would doing this all help with brain fog as well? And the answer is yes, it could. Because when your insulin is off track, when you're having some insulin resistant issues, it 100% can affect brain fog. Not getting enough carbohydrates, not getting enough fuel, all of those things can impact brain fog because basically you don't have enough energy to get everything. Your brain is actually the area of your metabolism that requires the most energy. So when it has to start shutting down on what energy is going to get allocated to what areas, it'll pull a little bit from your brain. So that could be affected as well. Okay, so that's the 4 that we talked about in terms of hormones. Then the nutrition big 3, which is water, protein, and fiber. Again, that's another one where people are like, is it really this simple? And it's like, yeah, kind of, right? Like, again, it is the biggest impact. There are other things that you can do, but those are things that we layer on later. You don't need to starve. You just need to learn how to support your hormones nutritionally. What I want you to think about, what was your big takeaway from last week? What did you look at and go, okay, like I get that I'm doing like this thing and I can see how this is impacting what we talked about. Where do you think that you struggled the most? So I'm going to open it up. I'll check to see. You guys can always jump into the chat or you can go ahead and you don't have to show your face. You can just unmute yourself. I'll open it up to anybody who wants to share on those 2 or any questions that you guys have. Go ahead and shoot.
I think my biggest takeaway and my biggest struggle are connected. So being able to the amount of protein and how to get it into my daily diet when I am primarily vegetarian, pescatarian, right? Like I just struggle to get up to that amount of protein that is needed.
Yes. Who is this that I'm talking to?
Lisa,
Hey, Lisa. What I'm going to do, actually, let me write this down because I will 100% forget. When I send out the replay this time, I have a vegetarian-based protein pack that might help. Would you like me to send that in the email?
that would be awesome.
Okay. I think you guys will like it. Veggie protein pack. I will do that. And
I
yes,
think everybody in the comment is having the same question. So,
yeah, right. It's like the same takeaway is like, oh, I've got to get my protein up, and also this is my struggle. So, yep, totally get it. I will send that out. Whoops. And this veggie here too. Yep, I will get that. Oh, there you go. And fiber. Okay, so here's where it gets tricky with fiber is a lot of times we think in terms of vegetables. And when you're like, oh, broccoli, asparagus, things like that, it's like, oh, 2 grams, 3 grams. Jen said I have to get to 25. How do I do that? And then it gets a little bit more difficult, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting a nice mix. So you're looking at both grains and veggies and raspberries. The ones that always come to mind that are kind of just top of mind for me that sometimes people don't think about. Avocados actually have a decent amount of fiber in them. I'm a big raspberry girl, so you get a decent amount from raspberries. What are the other ones that I'm missing? Sweet potatoes have a good amount of fiber in them. And then grains, and then your legumes, like your beans and things like that. And that's where you're going to be able to pull the whole thing. I can tell you that when I have women who come to me and they're just have decided that carbohydrates are bad, and so they've removed all the grains and bread and all of those things, all of a sudden they're like, I'm just eating vegetables. They can't hit those numbers. They can't hit that fiber, and they usually are constipated, right? So because they're not getting that fiber in to help remove all of the toxins. So I would take a look at that and see if you can balance that out. I think that this pack has a decent amount of fiber in it. I also have a fiber guide, and I will include that as well. So there you go. Easy peasy. Any other questions or comments? Are we good? And did you have questions or are you going to wait to the end?
Um, I would I would say I when I hit the protein, I tend to go over on fiber and calories. So I guess it's just more mindful choices. I'm yeah, so it's hard to yeah, just playing around with all the different food combos and seeing where it gets you is a bit of a journey.
What are your,
And sometimes I just don't want to eat that much.
yeah,
That's the other thing. Like, really?
yep.
More?
Or what are you aiming for in terms of protein? How many grams?
100.
Aha. What
I
did
know.
what did I tell you guys how many grams of protein I get per day?
I'm supposed to be 135.
Yeah.
I mean, I have
Um,
hit it a handful of times this week, but I've also been under like 80, 75 a couple times.
you are going to feel very satiated, like because it is. It's very satiating. You add fiber to that, and you're like, how am I supposed to eat food? Your body will adapt. So don't feel like you need to force food. We don't want to
Right.
force that in. Um, so
I
what,
actually, as a vegetarian, I actually think I don't have any trouble hitting the fiber, and often I go over. So
uh,
maybe I need to like tone the fiber back so that I don't feel so full.
what are you hitting in terms of fiber?
Well, I'm going for 25, right? That's what you
Uh,
told us.
and then when you go over, how much over are you going?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
honestly.
Here,
But
listen, like most days I get 40 and it's fine. Like it's not a big deal.
okay.
So you got that. When you talk about protein, what are your sources of protein?
Um, I have taken on cottage cheese and Greek yogurt.
Okay.
Low here, this was one of my other questions. You know, back in the diet days of yesteryear, it was low fat everything. You know, when then we learned that you need a certain amount of fat to bring the protein into your system. And
Okay.
so then everybody went to low fat, but then sometimes there are people that say, just if you're going to drink milk or cheese or whatever, just do it whole. Just do real whole food.
Right.
So that's a sideline, but
No, I think it's
yeah.
great. It's
But
confusing.
also I do protein shakes and beans, and I look for vegetables for where to get my protein. Like beets have protein.
Yeah.
I
It
mean,
sounds like you're stacking everything. You just have to make sure that you're spreading it throughout the day and let your body adjust. It sounds like your body
right.
needs to adjust a little bit. I wouldn't worry about that. In terms of what I was looking for, and I forgot that you were more pescatarian based, is that a lot of times if you're going more towards the fattier meats like more beef, salmon, pork, things like that, that definitely that combination of protein and fat, it definitely will make you very full. And it will definitely spike your calories up. So that's kind of what I was looking for. And it doesn't sound like that's the case. In terms of like the whole low fat, no fat, which is the best option, healthy fat is good. The problem is that as humans, I think we talked about this last time, we like to swing from one to the other. We like all or nothing. So it's just the way the brain works. Like it's not like it's just you, it's just how our brains work. And so it's why you saw like for a long time it was like low fat, right? No fat, cut all the fat out of your diet. Your body does need fat. And if you were someone who tried to eliminate too much fat from your diet, especially as a woman who is in perimenopause to into menopause, that having those good fats in there actually help your hormones, right? So we don't want to eliminate fat. But then we like swing over here, and I've seen this probably in the last 8 to 10 years. Is like, no, I'm eating healthy fats, and then I look at people's diets, and they're like avocado, nuts, salmon, butter, like all these fats, and I'm like, okay, but your diet is like 45 to 50% fat. Like that's too high. We need to pull it back to a healthy amount. So what you want to do is look at each meal and go, do I have a source of fat? If I'm eating salmon, there's fat in it. I don't need to add fat to it. So I don't need to have salmon with nuts and avocado. Like people start to stack it too much. Does that make sense?
It does.
So, like, for example, when I have my breakfast, which is pretty standard breakfast, I have roasted sweet potatoes, and I will either do ground turkey or I will do chicken sausage, and then I will do either eggs or egg whites. Now, if I'm having chicken sausage, and I do have a pretty lean chicken sausage, but if I'm doing that and I happen to know, like a lot of times I'll do just a side note, two Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts have selenium in them. They are good for your thyroid. If I have those first thing in the morning, then I'm like, I kind of already have my fat, then I'll lean towards egg whites. It's not that the egg yolk is bad. I'm just looking at my meal going, do I have enough fat in there or do I want to add more? So I balance it that way. I'll do the same thing with my Greek yogurt. I found one Whole Foods carries one that I really like that is lactose free, and it's 2%. So then that way it gives me some play in the amount of fat that I have. So let's say that I do 2% and I want to put just a little bit of almond butter in there instead. I still have room for fat, or I can add another one if I want to, or I can keep that particular meal or snack a little bit lower fat. So it just gives me room to play. And I would rather you just be more intentional with how you do it instead of thinking one is right and one is wrong. Does that
Makes sense.
does it? Okay.
But
I don't want it to confuse you.
we definitely don't want to go with the no fat yogurt if that's the only one on the shelf, because you need it. You need the fat for the uptake of it's calcium, actually, right?
Yeah,
You
your body
won't get,
needs fat, and again,
yeah,
it's helpful to your hormones. Now, I will say there are times that I will get the no fat, just because it's nice to have that in case like I actually like adding a little bit of almond butter to mine sometimes. So depending
Ah,
on what they have, then I'm like, oh, I'll get the low fat one. Or it's like why I do egg whites. It's why I'll get non-fat yogurt sometimes because then I have the ability to use other things to add fat to it. Makes sense.
thanks.
I didn't confuse you, did I?
No, that was super helpful. I got it in the end.
Okay.
Stacking
I'm
carefully.
I'm piggybacking off of that question. If you're someone who probably gets too much fat, then does non-fat yogurt make sense, or should you still get the
If you
like?
feel like you're getting too much fat, I would just select the fat you like the most and scale back on the others. So, like, where do you think all of your fat is coming from?
Salmon, ribeye, the occasional ice cream cone. I don't know. When I look through like what I've been eating, I feel like there's already a decent amount of fat in everything I'm eating to where I'll probably like start eating more avocados. Um, I definitely don't think I'm in need of more fat.
Yeah.
That's why I've been getting the non-fat yogurt.
Then I would do that. Like
Okay.
it's like when I look at it, I'm like, you just kind of go, which one would I rather have? Would I rather have a scoop of ice cream every now and then and be able to just have low fat yogurt? Yes, I'll take it. Right? Like you just have to decide like what you want and where it's going to come from.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else real quick or are you ready to roll? You guys ready to roll? Make sure there's nobody.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry, I had my hand up, but I know you have a lot of people on your screen, so I'm just gonna yak. So I was gonna also piggyback. I've tried not to do the non-fat yogurt because I also was in the same thing with healthy fat, but then I started putting the avocado in my smoothies for the fiber and protein and stuff, and that put the fat in. But what percentage, I mean, what percentage of our diet should be fat? Is there like what's considered a healthy? I know um, when you do those food journals, they, tell you to put in what percentage you want your breakdown to be. And, to I put in, I tried to play with the carbs and the fat to get my protein. I put in what the protein is supposed to be, but then I didn't know what the carbs and the fat should be. So I just kind of, yeah.
It gets confusing. So let me just say this. You did it right, Joe, in that you want to plug that protein in first. Like my highest priority is to hit the protein and the fiber. And then just so you guys know, there is absolutely no advantage in terms of fat loss between carbohydrates and fat. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It does not matter. Now, if you can kind of categorize them, carbohydrates are good for energy or fat is good for hormones. And that's a very simplistic way to say it, but it kind of helps your brain go, okay. So then you go, all right, on this day, I'm doing a lot of activity. I'm doing a workout or I've got a couple of people who are running, right? So they're doing more running. And it's like on those days, they need more carbohydrates. They need that energy, right? And then you have days where maybe you're just going for a walk. So you don't need as much energy coming in. You could lower your carbs and increase your fat a little bit. So once you get a little bit more used to figuring out where you're at, you can play with these a little bit. So typically, on day, especially like a leg day or things where like if I'm at the gym and I'm on my feet or I have a lot going on, 100% I'm going to eat more carbs. And then on days like today where all I did was take a walk and then I sat my butt down all day, right? I'm going to drop my carbohydrates just a little bit and it's not even substantial. I don't log most of the time. I rarely do. I do recommend that you do for a while so that you can learn how to not log. But I just naturally will scale back my carbohydrates a little bit and I'll bump my fats up a little bit. And you just kind of play with them. But there's no advantage. There's no advantage to cutting carbs in terms of fat loss. There's no advantage to eating more fat in terms of fat loss. And so to answer your question, I think it was Joe, is that a healthy range is going to be dependent upon what your goals are, how well your body is metabolizing that. And it can be anywhere from 20 to 45%. I'd say 45 is pretty high, 20 to 40%. I find that most women do really well in that kind of 40-30-30 range ish, aka zone diet back in the day, which is like 40% carbohydrates, 30% protein, 30% fat, and then you kind of play with it from there. I find that most women do pretty well right around those numbers. Any other questions? And did that help? Is that what you were looking for, Jeff? Okay. We're good? All right. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. And then if you guys have your questions as they pop up, you can either jump. I pulled the participant list up. So if you guys raise your hands, hopefully I'll catch it this next time. So that is our review. Let's go ahead and go into what actually burns calories. So you know where to put your energy. So your body actually uses energy in 4 key ways. One we talked about last week, which is your BMR. That is your basal metabolic rate. That's basically your baseline. Then we have something called NEAT. That is all movement not associated to exercise. Then there is the thermic effect of food, which is when your body digests food. We talked a little bit about this last week as well. Protein, fiber, right? When your body has to break that down, you're going to get a little bump in your metabolism. And then EAT is actually exercise activity thermogenesis. That is the calories you burn from exercise. If you guys want to write these 4 down, I'm going to break them down a little bit further as we go through here. But I'm going to give you the percentages so you will see where you are getting the greatest burn. So if you look at your BMR here, your BMR is going to account for about 65 to 68% of your total caloric burn, which we'll talk about this. You can't really do much to change it. If you lose weight, it will change. If you've dieted quite a bit, you can change. Your body will change a little bit based on the type of exercise you're doing. But you can't really like hack it to get it to burn more. It is what it is, right? So it's about 65 to 68% of that total amount. Then NEAT, which is that non-associated to exercise thermogenesis, is 15 to 18%. Like you guys notice, I talk with my hands a lot. That's NEAT. Then you've got the thermic effect of food, which is 8 to 10%. And then that last little bit, which is exercise, is 5 to 7%. Basically, this means that exercise contributes the least to the amount of calories that you burn. Yep, there it is. Is anybody else surprised, or is it just Anne? And what do you think is the one thing that people do in order to burn? What do? They exercise. I got to burn calories. Well, okay. And I have literally, just so you guys know, I have debated this. I have done numbers. And I'll do them with you guys. I will show you the breakdown. It is true that even with your, and this is the mistake that people make. They're like, I'm working out 3 days a week. Like, and this thing says I'm burning 700 calories. And I'm like, okay, but then you sit forever. Like you're just sedentary instead of being someone who is a mover. And I wish I need to do this, just create like tons of slides showing clients of where like when they move, they lose weight. When they move, they lose weight. So you just need to become a mover. So let's break this down even further. We're going to start with your basal metabolic rate. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so your basal metabolic rate, again, that's 65 to 68%. It is calories burned for your body just staying alive. Remember, that's that going through your entire system and making sure that everything has the energy that it needs. That is your basal metabolic rate. Again, you can't really hack this. It's really just based on if you gain or lose weight. So if you gain weight, your BMR will be higher. If you lose weight, your BMR will be lower. So this is part of as your body adapts, where you're just like, wow, like I lost weight, now it's getting harder. It's because your BMR has slowed down. Chronic dieting can slow it down. So this is just that, like, it is what it is, and you can't do a ton about it other than you can protect it by fueling your body and spending more time in maintenance and fueling your body instead of being in long-term steep deficits. That will absolutely slow down your BMR. Your BMR is like your metabolism's autopilot, so we don't really want to do things, obviously, that are going to slow that down.
So,
Okay.
Jen,
Yep.
with kind of the changes that we've been talking about and that we're trying to make to get to our BMR, is there a kind of range for how long it takes your body to quote unquote reset, like to get to that BMR that we're supposed to be at? Is it like, it's like a 4 week thing, a 2 month thing? Like, I know everybody's different, but is there a kind of a range on how long it takes when we're trying to reset and get back to a good place?
So I think I understand your question. I'm just going to get some clarity. I think you mean to get back to what your tracker or what, like, okay, so I think this is where there's some confusion. When we talked about BMR, and if you go into your BMR calculator, it shows like at rest, and then it
Right.
gives you other numbers like if just walk, or if you work out 2 to 3 times a week, or if you work out 5 to 6 times a week. Or is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, so kind of we've been trying to track to get to the right amount of calories with that protein, fiber, water kind of breakdown. If we've been working on this for 2 weeks, how long does it take the body to say, okay, I'm in a good place. I no longer have to hold on and save everything, and now we can, you know, burn what we have?
Right. So, and that's a great question. Everybody's like, how long does it take? One, let's make sure BMR, basal metabolic rate, truly is at rest. So you're not going to reset that per se. What you're looking at is, can I actually raise the rate that I'm actually burning to what my tracker and what this formula is saying. So if, based on the fact that I work out 3 to 4 times a week and I'm not sedentary and all of that formula, it says that you should be burning about 1,800 calories, but you can only eat 1,300 calories, that kind of thing. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So the first step is we've got to balance out those hormones. So you remember when we talked about schmeck, sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings, digestion?
Yeah.
We need all of those at a 4 or 5. So that is dependent on a couple things: how quickly you can implement the things that are going to get you to that 4 or 5. That's the first step. And then you want to increase calories by about 100 every week, and it'll just take a little bit of tweaking. It does not take much effort. It seems like it would, but to add 100 calories every single day for a week is like not hard at all. 100 calories is nothing. But your body will adapt typically pretty quickly to that, as long as we don't have a bunch of hormonal dysfunction going on over here.
Got it. Okay.
Helpful? Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go to NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This we call the hidden metabolic hero. It counts for 15 to 18%. It is next in line, next to BMR, just the one that you don't control. This is all movement outside of exercise. This is walking, fidgeting, doing your chores, talking with your hands, shifting around in your seat, right? Like, this is all movement associated outside of formal exercise. Now, we're going to talk about metabolic pushback in just a little bit, but pushback means that your metabolism will be like, oh, I don't like this, and so it will release hormones to make you hungry, give you cravings, it will drop your energy levels down. Well, your body isn't threatened by talking with your hands. It's not like a big caloric burst, right? So it's not going to do anything about that. You walking, it knows that you're a human. Humans walk. So it doesn't feel threatened by that. It's not going to give you what we call metabolic pushback. Keep that in mind. We're going to go into it a little bit deeper here in just a little bit. It's easy, it's free, it's effective. And a bonus, leisure walking, not walking at a quick clip, ladies. Leisure walking actually lowers stress hormones and increases insulin sensitivity. So you guys have probably heard of insulin resistance before. It might have been thrown around and you're like, I know it's not good. Basically, remember, hormones are messengers. And so what happens is insulin gets released and it is a messenger two that goes knocking on the door of the cell and is like, hey, open up and take this blood sugar in, take us in and use us for repair and all of that good stuff. Well, what happens due to various things is that insulin, the cells become resistant to insulin's message. So insulin comes knocking and the cells basically deaf ear it. They're like, no, don't hear you, can't hear you. And the problem, besides the fact that you don't have blood sugar circulating throughout your bloodstream, is that then the cells send a mess. They have the nerve to send a message to your brain and say, well, we need insulin. We need to be able to do our stuff over here. So then remember the hypothalamus in your brain goes, hey, release, it sends this message to your pancreas is like, hey, release more insulin. So then it just keeps dumping this in to basically break through those cells. Not good. So we want those cells to be opened up. We want that sensitivity to be open so the cells pull that insulin in and utilize it. Does that make sense? So leisure walking lowers stress hormones. It also is going to give you a greater insulin sensitivity, along with the fact that overall, it will help your body burn more calories every single day. Did I see somebody ask a question? No. Okay. Okay, the thermic effect of food. We talked a little bit about this last time. This is going to go into 8 to 10% of your caloric burn. Again, protein and fiber will create that higher metabolic burn because they are harder to digest. They are harder to break down. That's giving you that satiation. Your body will adapt to it. Try not to force it. Just slowly, titrate it up just a little bit at a time. And again, your nutrition big three are going to fuel this. Protein and fiber are your basically your passive fat burning allies. And lastly, exercise activity thermogenesis. It's just 5 to 7% of your total caloric burn every day, all over the course of a week. So it is the smallest slice of your daily burn. And when we talked about that metabolic pushback, this is where your metabolism is going to go, ooh, there's a lot of, because it's a short period, but it is a big burst, it will increase things like hunger and cravings. Like if you've ever paid attention, like when you go and do a big workout and you're like, why am I like snacky today? Right? Like I'm always snacky on leg days. I'm just like, my body's like more calories, right? It's going to increase hunger and cravings. It can decrease energy levels because so basically your brain is being like, slow down. I need you to stop moving around, especially if you are under fueled. Too much cardio means that your body is going to create this compensation. Again, we're going to go into this a little bit deeper, adaptation, and then it decreases your overall BMR. So the amount of calories that you're burning just at rest slows down. Keep in mind that more is not better. We want to be strategic in how we do this. And exercise can be a great tool for fat loss if it is used strategically. It is not effective as a single strategy. And here's what I mean by that, is that when you strength train your body, you basically break that muscle down. And so your body goes, ooh, we got to fix that. So you will get a little bump in your metabolic rate. That's why that hunger goes up. So strength training is an amazing way to get that total daily energy expenditure, Lisa, to go up, because then the body will be like, I need calories, right? So then, and it'll use them. So we can get that number to go up fairly quickly, right? Or quicker. It's a quicker way to do it. It's one of the fastest ways to raise your metabolic rate. So we've got that, but it just has to be managed correctly, because if you're not paying attention, then you're eating too many calories and you're gaining weight. That's not the goal. We just want an uptick in the metabolism. The other way that this can happen is that, yes, when you are doing cardio, you will burn calories in the moment. That's good. It's not a bad thing. It just needs to be managed. It's not a single strategy. Things like HIIT, things like sprint intervals. So the difference between those two is HIIT, high intensity interval training. We want to make sure that there's intervals in there. It does not mean go as hard as you can for 40 minutes to 60 minutes in a class. It's high intensity for 2 to 4 minutes on average with an equal amount of rest. So if I push for 2 to 4 minutes, then I want to rest for 2 to 4 minutes. If you guys are in my class, you'll notice like there's always that 60-second rest, right? Or sometimes if I'm doing sprints, it's like 20 seconds with 40 seconds. I keep them pretty close together, right? Like that's more like interval training, but it is usually interval trainings are 2 to 4 minutes. Sprint intervals, you got to warm up for sprint intervals, and that's where they get a little bit tricky because you're going to go 20 to 30 seconds as hard as you can. And then you're going to recover for 2 to 4 minutes. So they're slightly different, but what they do is they create a metabolic response where your body will burn a higher amount for the next 12 to 36 hours. It just gives you a little bit of a bump. But again, it has to be managed because your body will then go, well, give me more calories, right? So you just got to make sure that you're using it as a tool and not like the whole toolbox. Questions on that one? I know that most people are like, you're killing me with this exercise thing.
I have a question.
Yep.
I think in social media, I've seen that women going through menopause, maybe post-menopause, really shouldn't do the I guess the sprint interval training, or I used to love trail running because the impact on your body, it creates stress that messes up your hormones.
Yeah.
So where, like as a longtime runner, that worked for me for a long time, but doesn't seem to be working for me anymore all of a sudden.
Uh-huh.
What do I do with all of this?
So that is a great question because you will see on social media, it's like, oh, cortisol and blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's not quite where, it's not quite true in that here's the problem. As we go into perimenopause and menopause, we are much more stress sensitive and we don't recover as well. So there's that. And then also as women, we do these workouts and then we think, well, more is better. So let me do them 5 days a week. And then when we leave these workouts, we walk into a day filled with a long list of to-dos and obligations that we will never complete. And we drink coffee all day and we don't get enough sleep. And so then it just keeps compounding. That is the biggest problem. So what we do is instead go, okay, I need to find the things that help me manage stress. I had a great conversation with a client the other day, and she realized, and there was like legit stuff going on in her life. And it was interesting because I noticed her resting heart rate went down, which is an indicator of how well the body is handling stress. And she goes, it's crazy that I feel so calm. And she goes, what I realized was that I just perceived it differently than I ever have. And as women, we take the stress and we let our brain just chew on it. What am I going to do? And da, 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 right? And we do all this stuff and just being, instead of being like, I don't control this. And so I'm just going to find ways to manage my stress. I'm going to control what I can control and I'm going to let the rest go. And that's hard. And so you have to learn how to manage stress. And then you go, okay, small bits of hit and sit are good for me. I just need to figure out that Goldilocks zone of what works for me. And if you play with it, you'll find it. You just have to play with it. And then you go, I'm just not going to do that every day. And then I'm going to make sure that, so you guys know in the class how I always have you lay down and do the breathing. And the reason that I do that is that we want cortisol in a workout. We need cortisol in a workout, but then we need your brain to stop pumping it when we're done. And so we use breathing to slow your heart rate down, and then your heart sends a signal to your brain that says, hey, we don't need stress hormones anymore, just calm down. So then we walk into the day, reset. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, I try to give enough, but not confuse you. So you just got to remember you're looking for the sweet spot. There's no like don't do this, because you'll see that on social media. You're correct. Like women in perimenopause should not do HIIT. And that's not true. You have to gauge on how well you can recover and what kind of stress management practices you have in place. Let's see. That's encouraging. Perfect. Okay. So let me make sure I didn't miss that one. Okay, let's talk about metabolic pushback. So this is the first law of the metabolism. It's called compensation. And what it means is that the metabolism is always seeking homeostasis. And what that means is caloric intake and caloric output to be the same. It wants it to be the same. It does not like it when it's not the same. That's how it keeps you alive, right? So what it will do is it self-adjusts anytime there's too big of a gap. It'll tolerate a small gap. I call it the side eye. Like it knows you're doing it and it'll go like, I'm watching you. But a small gap, it won't push back. A big gap, and it's going to push back. And it will push back in the form of increased hunger and cravings. It will drop your energy levels down. And then it will slow down your BMR. And because of adaptation, this is the second rule, your metabolism adapts to everything you do. Its goal is to become very efficient so that it can conserve. So between compensation and adaptation, now you're burning less and less calories every time you exercise. So just know that you can't out-hack your metabolic system. It will always win. So you just have to learn to work with it and go, okay, if my goal is fat loss, what I need to do is make sure that I'm doing short, small deficits, strategically done. And if you're in a deficit, be in a deficit. That doesn't mean like I'm in a deficit Monday through Thursday and then I'm not in a deficit Friday through Sunday. That doesn't work, right? You have to be intentional in your deficits and stick to them, do them, and then get back out. And then make sure that you have lifestyle habits that support a healthy metabolic system overall. Questions on this one? Does homeostasis, I think you meant homeostasis, have a role in changing my metabolic rate in any of these four? I just heard about this over the weekend. No, allostasis. What's allostasis? Changing metabolic rate. Classes. Tell me what you learned about with allostasis, Jennifer, and I will come back to that. I'm going to circle back to that one. Anybody else have any questions? I don't see any raised hands. Does this all make sense so far? The president's body responds to stressors in order to regain homeostasis. Does it have change your metabolic rate in any of these four classes? Are you talking about, which classes are you talking about? Oh, the like HIIT versus sit versus strength training? Yep. Yes. Okay. So yes. And that is going to have to do with a couple things. Number one, where you're at in the perimenopause, menopause timeline, because as estrogen drops, you will be less stress sensitive or you'll be more stress reactive, right? So you just don't handle stress as well, not from a mental state, from a physiological state. So that will have an impact on it. And then it also has to do with just how you react to stress, what your natural response to any stress is. And that would have an effect on your overall metabolic rate. Yes. Did I answer that? Was that what you were looking for? If I did not, okay, all right. Joe, what you got?
I have several questions, but specifically about this. I have quite a bit of weight to lose, and understanding this, it's going to be a very slow process, and that's fine. I understand, especially for it to be lifetime, it needs to be. But it's I'm, to be honest, fairly dejected right now to think about how long it could potentially take for this to happen. So I guess I'm a little confused about, like you're saying, the small deficits strategically done. Are you talking like a couple hundred calories here every couple days and then going like back and I guess I'm just confused
Mm-hmm.
as to kind of what it would look like,
Yeah.
maybe just over a couple weeks.
So the first step is always hormonal balance.
Right.
So timeline wise, how quickly can you get there? And I'm not talking perfection. I'm talking, remember, on that scale, 4s to 5s. Then it's, okay, am I able to consume whatever my TDE calculation is? What that means is that if my tracker is saying that I burn 2,200 calories a day, can I eat at least 2,000, 2,100 calories without gaining weight? You cannot start fat loss until you can get there because there's no room, right? Like if you can only consume 1,600 calories without gaining weight, and your BMR, your basal metabolic rate, remember that's like at rest, if that's at 1,400, you have no room to cut. So you have to build that back up. But let's just say you're like, okay, I'm at 1,600. Next week, I'm going to eat 1,700. And then I'm still okay. And then I'm going to get to 1,800. And then I'm still okay. You're just going to slowly work your way up until you get closer to that 2,000, 2,100. And you can use exercise to help you get there, right? Because then the body wants that amount. So that's not a bad thing. Like use strength training, use a little bit of cardio, like use the things in your toolbox to get those calories up. On average, if you're doing things strategically, you should be able to add 100 calories per week. And then you want to be able to sustain that. So basically we want to reset that and let the metabolism adapt to that. We don't want to just touch it and then run. We want to like touch it and stay and go, are we good? Are we good? And I would give that anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. I've towed the line with that one before because I know that women get antsy in their panties about being able to go into fat loss. And it rarely works out well because they'll start to lose weight, but then they stall faster. So it's like, give it a good at least 3 to 4 weeks. I wish it would be longer, but at least 3 to 4 weeks. And then you go, okay, let me cut by 200 calories, 200 to 300 calories. Let me see if I start to lose weight. And then it's just a game knowing that everything you do, the body is going to adapt to. So once you drop let's say you drop down by 250 calories and you're like, yep, starting to lose weight, then you just ride that out. You just keep doing that out. And at some point it will plateau. And then you stay there, make sure it's a true plateau for a couple weeks, right? Is it still there? Is it still there? Cool. Then you have a choice. You can either lower your calories a little bit more, or you can get your body to burn a little bit more. So you basically do what I call spreading the gap. You just keep going like this, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And then one of two things is going to happen, or both. You will get down too low, where you're like, all right, like I'm eating 1,500 calories. This is uncomfortable. I'm too close to my BMR. And honestly, this is the other thing that will happen. You're mentally just out. You can't keep it up anymore. You're telling yourself that you're in a deficit, but you're really not, right? You're like kind of straddling it. That's where I always say, if you're in a deficit, be in a deficit. But the problem is that your brain at some point just gets tired of it. So then you work your way back up and you just keep doing that. You just keep cycling it. And then once you get good at that, there are other little tricks that you can do, but that's the basics of it. So a lot of it just depends on how long you can hold that deficit. Does that help a little bit? Okay. No other questions, no other hands. I think we're good. Okay. So your caloric burn roadmap. Leisure walking daily. Just so you guys know, 10,000 steps is an arbitrary number. The research is showing around 8,200 is kind of where the marker is, where you're going to get some of these extra benefits. That being said, let's say, Joe, that you drop your calories down by 250 calories and you're at 10,000 steps per day. And you're like, okay, I don't really want to cut my calories right now. I'd rather just burn a little bit more. But I'm walking 10,000 steps a day. Well, then walk 11,000 steps. Walk 12,000 steps. Like your body's adapted to 10,000 steps. 10,000 steps does not mean that you're like burning a ton of calories because your body has adapted to those steps. Does that make sense? So like there's only been a couple times when I have gone into a fat loss phase, I use leisure walking to do it because it allows me to keep my calories in check. I don't get any pushback, right? So then I can keep my calories where I need them to be and I walk my butt off. I on average hit 13, 14,000 steps a day easily. So when I'm in a fat loss, that means I got to do even more. So you just have to remember that 10,000 is just arbitrary. You just have to figure out where you're at. The other thing you want to do is make sure that you're strength training at least 3 days a week, up to 5, depending upon how well you are recovering and what your goals are. Cardio, sure, sprinkle it in. Low intensity, steady state. It's great for happy hormones. You can hit some HIIT, you can hit some sit. You can do, 2 to 3 times per week as long as they're shorter, they're not long, and a lot of them. And then where it says based on SHMEC, that's your sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings, digestion. You use those as feedback. So like I know in general, if I do any kind of list cardio for any 40 minutes, and it's probably psychological, is kind of the mark for me, I'm going to be a hungry bear. My body doesn't like it. So I just I don't do it for that long. And then keep reminding yourself that you need to spend more time fueling and less time in a deficit. You want to be able to work with your body, not against it. This is your TDE cheat sheet. Gives you an idea of, the burn sources that we talked about. So you've got your BMR, your NEAT, your thermic effect of food, your exercise activity thermogenesis, the percentages, your control level. So your BMR, you have very little control over. So the strategy is just to make sure that you're fueling and you're avoiding chronic dieting. NEAT is a high level of control. You do control that, which means that you're just walking and you're moving. Thermic effect of food, you have medium control over that because you can focus on protein and fiber. And your exercise thermogenesis, again, it's medium control level because you want to train with intention instead of just more.
Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah, could you go back to the 2 slides back, your caloric burn roadmap?
Yep.
What does that the 4th bullet point mean? I mean, you read it to us, but I need more clarification. Spend more time fueling. To me, I'm hearing spend more time eating.
So yes, so keep in mind, every time you put yourself in a deficit, you are slowing down your metabolic rate based on adaptation. So if you are constantly putting yourself in a deficit, you are slowing your metabolism down. So you want to spend more time fueling your body, not in a deficit. So that way, when you do a deficit, it actually works.
So I am increasing my caloric intake.
Is that a question or a statement?
Question.
What is your goal by doing that?
Well, I don't want to lower my metabolism.
So you have to decide what your goal is. So if you are like Lisa talked about it a little bit ago, it's like, okay, if I'm trying to get my TDE, total daily energy expenditure, up, I'm trying to raise my metabolic rate, then I need to be strength training and I need to be fueling more. I need to be slowly, incrementally increasing my calories. That is how you get your metabolism to go up. Now, at some point, it's going to max out, right? And then if you're strength training, doing light cardio, at some point you max out. If you keep trying to add more calories in, then yeah, you're going to gain weight. You'll have a tipping point of where you're like, okay, this is kind of my max.
Okay. So this is part of the puzzle. I can't take the 4th bullet point all by itself. All by itself, it looks like the message is, well, if you want caloric burn, you got to eat more. But that's not correct, right?
If you want a healthy metabolic system, you need to be spending more time in maintenance and a surplus, depending upon where you're at, and less time dieting. So if you look at the overall, kind of like Joe and I were talking about, there's a system to it, right? So it's like fuel, get the metabolism up, and then if you want to lose weight, then you got to do a deficit, and then you cut, right? And then you can fuel again, get it up, and then you can cut, and then so you cycle. And then at some
Oh,
point you have times of maintenance. But the problem is that most women spend too much time trying to diet and not enough time intentionally being in maintenance and also fueling to get their metabolism back up.
okay. 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 Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome. You're welcome. Um, okay, so this week, here's what I would like for you to do. Identify where your focus has been in the past. Where's your natural inclination? Like where do you just kind of naturally lean into and then go, okay, does it fit in this and what I need to do? I want you to start tracking your steps. Where are you? If you're at 5,000, you don't need to hit 10 this week. Just go, okay, I'm going to start hitting 6 or I'm going to start hitting 7, right? Like just start paying attention to how much movement you're actually getting. Are you getting protein and fiber at every meal? Are you paying attention to sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings, digestion? Are you running those throughout the day? And then adjust your workouts accordingly based on the type, the frequency, and the intensity. Okay, am I hitting 3 days a week of strength training? Am I getting my walking in? If I'm doing those, okay, can I add just a little bit of cardio in there? And just kind of make those modifications based on the feedback that you're getting and what you just learned. So next week, we're going to talk about how to sustain all of this without burnout. So that's what we're going to go into next week. I know we're running real close to an hour. So does anybody have any quick questions that I can jump into real quick?
Hi, quick question. I have trouble categorizing what kind of workout I'm doing, especially like with the classes at our gym. I joined like fairly recently. So I just don't know what is like, for example, I do the kickboxing class, I do the cycling class, sometimes Pilates. I just don't know how to categorize those.
Those are cardio.
Oh, okay. So is pretty much every class cardio?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So here's the thing, and I haven't been in a strength and conditioning class in a long time, so I don't know exactly how she formats it. But here's how you know if it's strength based. If you can do, 15 reps, and if you had to keep going, you could. That's not strength training.
Okay. So strength training, I guess my next question is what is strength training? But that might be for next week, or I guess.
I can answer it really quick. I think it's a great question. Strength. So there's kind of categories, right? So true strength training is typically going to be anywhere from 3 to 6 reps of max effort. So think deadlifts, pull-ups, push-ups, bench presses, heavy compound movements where you are only able to do 3 to 6 reps, and then you're pretty close to failure. That's strength. Then you have something called hypertrophy, and that's like muscle building, where we're actually building the muscle up. And typically, a good rule of thumb is going to be anywhere from, and these are just good rules of thumb, 8 to 12 reps, right? So then there's enough volume of an exercise that we can then start to get that muscle to grow, which is slightly different than strength, right? So that's 8 to 12 reps, meaning that you're at about 80% of max effort, which means that you typically only have a couple of reps left in reserve, meaning like if I hit that 12 reps, I could maybe do 2 more, but then I would be like maxed. That would be as much as I could do.
And then with strength training, you recommend 3 times a week. Is it like one body part each day, or should we doing if it's only 3 to 6 reps of each? Does it make sense to do like arms and legs 3 times a week?
So there's sets and then there's reps and then there's body parts. So what I would recommend is if you are newer to strength training, I recommend some form of total body. So you're hitting a little bit of everything. Because if you weren't used to doing true strength training, traditional strength training where you're going anywhere from 3 reps to 12 reps, 15 tops, if you're not used to training that way and you came in and did 40 minutes of legs, you would walk, right? Like that, then that's not the goal. So what we want to do is kind of hit a little bit of everything and get some consistency built around it. And that's where I would start if you're not doing that now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen,
Yes.
yeah, it could be now or next week. 2 things, functional tests.
Oh, yeah.
And then the second thing is, how do you interpret a senior female bodybuilder in the context of hormones and metabolism?
Okay. So a couple things really quick. you guys, if you have to jump, I totally get it. I'm not going to be offended, but I do want to answer questions. So if you want to hang out with me, I will answer these questions. And I've got a couple things for you, Jennifer. But if you have to go, I totally get it. All right. So first question in terms of functional tests, here's what I'll say in regards to that. I will, by any, I will also include, I wrote it down, a list of a good panel to ask for from your practitioners. I will tell you that if you're going to a general practitioner, a lot of times they'll run most of these, they won't always run all of them, which can be very, very frustrating. However, keep in mind that legally, a practitioner cannot run tests that they have no intention of treating. And your general practitioner is not educated to treat a lot of these metabolic things going on. They don't receive training for this stuff. You will also find that even endocrinologists will not have some of the training to understand how some of this works. So I'll send you guys out the list of what you can ask for. I usually tell my clients to just mention to their practitioner, like, hey, I'm working with a hormone specialist. Will you go ahead and run these? Sometimes they will go ahead and run them. So you always want to start with that, which is like a CMP, like all of your basic stuff. You're getting your lipids done. You're looking at liver function. You're looking at a full thyroid panel, which most of them will not run. You're looking at C-reactive protein. You're looking at some of those things that kind of give you a good baseline of general health. And then based on those, then we can go, okay, are there other things we need to look at? Keeping in mind that one panel being off does not represent a problem. What we're looking at is what it points to, right? Like one panel will not, if there's a problem with your liver, one panel being off is not going to be indicative that there's an issue. There would be several panels leading to it because they all work together. So you want to make sure you're working with somebody that knows how to actually read a lab report instead of just looking at the ranges and going, yep, you're good. Like there's a little bit more to it than that. So you want to start with making sure you're working with somebody that knows how to read them. You want to work with the panels that I'll send you. I'll make sure that I send those in it. And then it's just a matter of like, okay, what do we think might be an issue? Some people I have done a Dutch test. It can be beneficial. I don't think that everybody needs one. I know that it for a while was kind of like the standard and everybody talked about it, and I certainly did mine, and I certainly have had clients do them, and they are sometimes helpful if we think that we can't see what's going on with the way that a certain hormone is metabolizing, then that can be helpful. Other ones that can be helpful are more gut specific, specifically for females, because everything goes through the gut. If your gut is not functioning very well, like it creates a cascade of issues. And there's no amount of supplements that you can take to fix that, because if your gut is where you metabolize, your liver and your gut is where you metabolize. And if your gut is not functioning correctly, like anything you take in, it's not metabolizing it, so it doesn't matter. So you could do different gut tests. There's like different stool tests that you can get. They can get very pricey. And so you just want to work with somebody who is going to keep in mind that most of these tests are out of pocket. And so, you gotta kind of have your limit of like, how much am I willing to invest on this? Because a lot of practitioners will be like, okay, well, let's get this one. And you're like $1,000 later in tests. And then you still have to deal with treatment. So, but I will at least start you guys off with what basic ones to ask for. And then your other question, Jennifer, you said something about panels related to a bodybuilder. Can you give me some clarification on that?
How do you interpret a senior female bodybuilder in the context of hormones and metabolism? So when you look at a senior female bodybuilder, what do you, it's kind of like, well, how are you translating how she manages her metabolism, her strength training, her water intake, now, I mean, this is a competitor, I understand. What really intrigues me is that she's female, and she's senior. So that's what I want to relate to.
I'm not sure I completely understand the question because things I'm going to look for are just the same things that I would look for with anybody else, knowing that if she is a senior, that she, unless she's on hormone, even if she is on hormone replacement, like her estrogen, her progesterone, her testosterone, like all of those sex hormones are going to probably be off a little bit. And so we kind of take that into account and go, okay, how well is she responding to stress? How well is she sleeping? How well is she hydrating? Like, and what kind of feedback is she getting from in terms of sleep, hunger, mood, energy, cravings? So I basically take all of the same things I would look at with anybody else, and then I would look at her feedback and go, what kind of feedback are you getting? Because that wouldn't change just because she's a senior bodybuilder.
Um,
Unless there's something specific that I'm not understanding.
no, no. I'll chew on it. No, thank you so much for going over time. I'll chew on it.
Yeah, see if there's something specific that you're looking for. From an overall health standpoint, I would look at it the same way that I would look at everybody else, and then I would take a look at what her goals are, and I would take a look at her hormonal feedback and go, okay, what is it that we're going towards? What kind of feedback are we getting? What are your habits? And then I would just pull those all together. But there's nothing off of a lab report that I would be looking for specifically for someone who is a senior bodybuilder.
Okay. Okay, so only when I look at a senior female bodybuilder, I'm seeing someone who does have her hormones in check, that the Schmecht thing is all aligned. I mean, that's how she's in the shape that she's in. Is that a fair conclusion, or is that too much of an assumption?
That's an assumption for sure.
Okay.
Because a lot of what you see on social media of women who are extremely lean does not represent hormonal balance. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I've seen it and it exists. The female body does not want to be that lean. And so it can and usually does create a lot of hormonal disturbance.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It affects digestion, it affects sleep, it affects mood. I've seen breakdown after breakdown from women who do shows because of how restrictive everything is, because they do very low fat, they do very just restrictive styles of eating. And again, they're basically squeezing out all of the water out of their body. You know what I mean? So like it is not a healthy sport. I respect the determination and discipline it takes. But I would never encourage a woman to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that helps a great deal. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, that's it for today. Make sure you write your questions down. And then I will see you guys all next week. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.